Let's get underway here.
No, she's not good.
We've got a light group today, which hopefully means you guys will participate when it comes time to. We're going to talk about multiple offers today, which I feel like I thought to myself when we're doing it today and on Friday, and I thought to myself, like, I feel like we talk about that all the time. And then I realized like we haven't done it for probably a year and a half or so. I remember back when we had like a multiple offers class like every month at least. It felt like, but it has been a while. And has anybody been in multiple offers in the last month with a buyer?
Stay.
Okay. Yeah. So like everybody who's written an offer in the last month that was in multiple offers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. I've lost all of them, so that's why I'm gonna ask the questions. Not be the one telling you how to win. But that's gonna be good. We'll get to that in 20 minutes or so here, but first, go through our normal housekeeping items. We're gonna start the way we always do, talking about our beliefs. I want a couple of you to share. I've got one too, because I thought about this long and hard this morning to make sure I had something good for you. But some things that you've seen show up either in your own business or with other agents, your own clients, even outside of the business for that matter. Any of these that you've seen show up in a positive way? Ryan, you got something good? Nothing? Anybody? Come on.
I'll just go with the trust one. Whenever you think it's sticky and it's going to be a hard conversation to have, if you have it right up front, it builds a lot of credibility on both sides. You know, just try to get the conversation started. We just had one recently, and there were some things that were a little on the edge, and we just said, hey, by the way, if you're going to rent back from us, we've got to have $100 to pay in the transaction. And I wish it wasn't that way, but we've got a lot of things to pay, and you know, he was thankful. He was thinking he was going to get it for free, but we had the conversation, and we settled. We gave him 4 days free, and the rest of the days for it. But it was just have the hard conversations up front. No one's going to fault you for it.
As opposed to a lot of times people just hold it against each other instead. They don't ever say anything, but they just hold things against each other unfairly that were never actually discussed, but they made assumptions about what they think would be said if it was said, right? Yeah, for sure. That's the one I'm going to talk about. We're going to get at least one more person to talk first.
I have one if nobody else does.
Go ahead.
Communication.
Everybody's relieved.
Communication. With the agent that I was working with, she had the sellers, and her sellers are divorcing, and they do not get along well. They both relocated to a different state, into 2 different cities. They can't know anything about the other one at all. And what was great is that
Witness protection program.
what was great though is that she communicated with us from the beginning. Hey, here's what I know. They're getting divorced. They don't get along. They don't live in Ohio. I'm letting you know all of this so we can all be successful. And you guys aren't going to get yelled at for putting them both on a message or sharing information. So we're all set up to succeed together as a team versus, you know, just saying, hey, you'll figure that out. So that was really great. And we were able to close on Friday. And it just went really well for us because right from the beginning, everyone was communicating.
Yeah. In that scenario, that seems like so obvious, right? Like, why wouldn't you share the information needed with your partners in the transaction, right? But like, how often have you been a part of a transaction where you look like something went wrong and you look back and you think like, I don't know why I didn't talk about that with that until it bit you, and then you're like, dang, this one's gonna die now over something that it never needed to, but now it is. So that's great. Mine, trust, especially, and I wanted to kind of relate it to multiple offers, and so I had somebody, one of the people that lost in multiple offers the weekend before Easter, so 8 days ago, I guess. They're people that are, he's like the son of a woman I've dealt with in the past, and so I sort of know him, so he's not like a total stranger I don't build trust from zero with or anything, but you know, when people lose in multiple offers, they often get upset. And I'm not sure how much like they're upset with us, but I think we think they're upset with us. Right? I think they're probably just upset with the situation, and we take that as us. But I'm sure some of it's us. But I think like the more conversation we have with people at the start of that competitive moment, like the easier it is to get through it, win or lose, right? Because flip side of that, has anybody ever won multiple offers and they could tell as soon as they told their buyer they won, their buyer thought, I feel like I made a mistake. So like winning is not always good in that scenario, right? So, but I think that like if you have all of the hard conversation, like, yeah, maybe to win, you're gonna have to do something that's not good for you in this way. But if it's good for you in this way, because you feel like having this house is gonna be to your benefit over the long term, and you know overpaying is okay, then like maybe they don't have that feeling like, shit, what did I get myself into, right? And likewise, when you call them and tell them that they accepted another offer, the more conversation you have with them about making sure that they feel good about the decision they're making and why they're making it, they're probably less likely to be upset about it and more likely to kind of like trust you in the process moving forward the next time. And also, I think it like one piece that we don't talk about much there is I think it gives us the opportunity to trust them more in the decisions that they make, right? Because they're making decisions based on whatever, right? Until we've like built the box with them and figured out like, what is this decision about? How much of it's about what you want versus what makes the most sense versus market data? Like, you know, those things don't necessarily align, right? And the more conversation we've had about that with people, the more we can feel good about their answers in the future, I think, in addition to them trusting us. You know, we're always talking about gaining trust, but I think there's a benefit there too, of trusting our clients, because that's hard to do sometimes when they're saying things that you think, are you sure about that? Are you sure that's a good idea? So that's great. Thanks for participating, everybody, or the people who did anyway. Red Day. I think we've got a visitor for Red Day.
We do.
Come on up, Brian.
Red Day's coming up in 2 weeks and 2 days, and it's our time to renew, energize, and donate. And this year we're going to 8 different venues to donate our time. The best one's going to be making goodie bags for Ronald McDonald House, because I'm running that one. It'll be over at Pepper Pike, but we're doing Fatima, we're doing the Lakewood YMCA. We're doing a whole bunch of places. So I'm excited. I want to get as many people there as we can this year. We had a good turnout last year. I want to have a great turnout this year. And what's really nice for the dual career agents that can't do it on Red Day, we're doing the night before at Common Threads. We're going to be sorting clothes and stuff. So there's lots of opportunities. There's an email going out. It'll have a link. Please sign up. One of them is already full, and that was the something blooms. Big Hearted Blooms. That filled up really quick. So we've still got things like Med Wish, and of course the best one, Ronald McDonald House with me on the east side, or
Lakewood YMCA.
Lakewood Ryan's. Yeah, so there's a lot of.
If you haven't signed up yet, sign up for Ohio Guidestone. You'll be with me.
Yep.
It's gonna be a blast.
See, see, and the I shouldn't say the best part of donating, but we have a happy hour afterwards, which is a great sense of community together. So we definitely enjoy that part. So.
And that's at Masthead, correct?
It is Masthead Brewery downtown. Starts around 3, I believe 3 or 4, and yeah.
So if you guys, if you haven't done Red Day yet, don't come up with an excuse not to do it this year.
Great.
Participate. It's a fantastic day. It's a good opportunity to meet people that you haven't met inside of this brokerage, and work with them in a way that's not just like bumping into them at the office and just talking about some dumb deal or something, right? But rather like doing something different with them. And it's always a great opportunity to just get out and do something good instead of just do something good.
You can buy shirts at the front desk.
Oh yeah, that part.
How does that work? How much are they?
$15.
$15, okay.
Tell Kelly, me. If you want a shirt, and then if you're under 1 year, you get a free shirt.
There you go. So sign up if you haven't yet.
And we could always add it to your invoice at $50.
Our next career night is the Zoom version of career night, which is in just one day. It's tomorrow. So if you've got, has anybody in here ever taken a friend or anybody to a career night? Okay. What was their experience?
They thought it was super informational, and she ended up doing the schooling and getting her license, and she's part of the brokerage now.
Nice. Ben, how about you?
The guy that I brought, I think he thought he got a lot of information. He ended up not going to school for it, but I think it was he felt, at least he didn't start it and end it quickly. I didn't waste my
It's
time.
definitely a better
Yeah.
way
Yeah,
than
right.
like just hearing about what you do
Yeah.
on a daily basis, right, John?
I was the guy being brought, Jeff Wayne brought me, and I'm here, so. So I did enjoy it.
Was it eye-opening in any way?
Yeah, a bit, cause I'm always on the other side, I was always on the buying side, it's just kind of fun to hear how the conversation goes on the agent side, and I'm enjoying it, so. thank you.
Cool. So always a great opportunity also to, if you're bringing people into this brokerage and they're successful, you make some money. So it's worth your time and effort. And it's worth your time and effort for them as well. People like John. All right, Easter egg hunt. Where's we have no Tori today?
No, she's
Oh. All right, come on
I know,
up.
yeah, Tori
Unfortunately,
is
some of
the
our biggest
mastermind
participants
behind
aren't even in the room to talk about the Easter egg hunt.
Right?
First, Kelly, talk a little bit about this and how the excitement level was created over the Easter egg hunt.
So at first we hid the Easter eggs in kind of like obvious spots, but then once the agents started going to town to find them, we made the spots significantly harder. And when you found an egg, they had candy and a raffle ticket in it, and then you would obviously put your name on the raffle ticket, put it in the little Easter basket, and for your chance to win a $20 gift card to Forage.
There you go. Here we have like some like the initial findings of the
Jeremy.
amount of tickets found by people. That's why I'm so surprised he's not in the room today. That I wanted to
Yeah.
harass him a little about this.
Like Jeremy's about to leave, and then he just like comes in here and just looking through, like
Quick
tearing the
five.
place upside down.
Right,
Yeah. But you try.
Let's see what we got. Who's the big winner?
Jeremy's gonna be so sad about it. I can't be the one to tell him.
It's recorded, so we can't do it.
Eddie Golden!
I think it's in the bucket.
Right?
Oh my gosh. I think I signed his name to half those tickets.
Yeah, you can name and number on it, but.
Means you get $10 out of $20.
Oh yeah, Eddie's on vacation. Yeah, he's coming.
Yeah.
All right, upcoming training events. Like I had alluded to earlier, Friday on both sides of town, we're gonna be doing like a multiple offers workshop. That's gonna entail agents writing offers, and then those offers getting summarized, and then depending on which side of town, you will have a person acting as like the listing agent that's gonna kind of go through those offers with the room and talk about things that they appreciate or don't appreciate about all of them, to try and get an understanding of whether you're doing it successfully or not, and maybe learn some things that people are doing that you've never even thought of doing, that they did. So should be a good day. I'm gonna be on the east side with Kate and Julia, and here we have Wesley and Carrie, correct? And Kelly. So it'll be fun. Do they need to sign up for them?
Yes.
Okay, please sign up for them. Sales meeting's coming up next week, both offices, managing multiple buyers. I can tell you, I came home. I don't recall when it was sometime in the last couple of weeks. And I told Jennifer that I don't like working with buyers anymore. It's the normal pains. I'm not having pains that are different than anybody else. But just the difficulty of like the house goes up for sale Thursday and you have to look at it Friday or else. It's like, it's not fun. So this should be a good topic for everybody. And then the Command Your Business workshop is only going to be here. That is the following Tuesday. All right, time for partner updates. we're gonna be a little light on the partner updates, I think, today, because there's only 2 partners here. But we will start with from Ohio Real Title.
My right foot was asleep.
You know, funny look on your face like, oh, like as though this was like a new thing to you or something.
Good morning, everyone.
What do you have for us?
Okay, it's like, putting the right foot, not being terribly awake. Good morning, everybody. As far as, title thing, now that we're totally into that crazy wild spring market, one thing that comes up a lot is how quick can you close this transaction? Because we got it under contract and can you close it Friday? Probably not. Has it happened? Yes, I never want to guarantee that to you though. Typically what we're going to say is 14 business days for a quick cash close, which is about 3 weeks on a calendar. Can we do it faster in some cases? Yes, but I would always prefer to under promise and over deliver versus have everyone upset. Also to set us all up for success, please provide contact information for your clients, email, telephone number. If they don't use email, please let us know so that we're not bothering you for that email address we're never going to get. And just don't forget, earnest money, we can get that via ACH deposit, which is quick, easy, and painless for you. I'm happy to share that link, and it's also through ohiorealtitle.com. And if you do have a buyer that maybe the closing's out of North Ridgeville, your buyer is welcome to drop that earnest money off if they have a paper check at any of our offices. Regular business hours, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Unfortunately, there are no drop boxes on weekends.
Can you tell me a little bit about the what you guys are doing with vacant properties in Cleveland? Because this seems to be a new thing.
Well, we are not doing anything.
Well, I'm surprised because I was under the impression that properties had to be registered, but it's sounding like now there's a gray area there.
So kind of the scoop there is the communication that we had with the city of Cleveland, and obviously they can only put certain things in writing. And I think we've kind of touched on this in the past, is if the property is legitimately vacant, it has been vacant, it will be vacant, and it doesn't look good. It's an eyesore, okay? It's not good looking, very obviously bad shape. That is a situation where you may want to encourage your seller to register that vacant property upon listing, because we are going to submit the city of Cleveland disclosure. If your seller says vacant, Cleveland is then going to check their vacant property registration. If the property is not registered, they're going to say, oh, we are not going to give you your city of Cleveland disclosure until this has been registered on the vacant property.
And then once it's registered, what happens?
Then they will release their city of Cleveland disclosure.
Will they do an exterior inspection or no?
Yes, but there can be a bit of a wait.
So does that mean you can't close?
Correct, because we cannot close until we have the city of Cleveland disclosure for a buyer and seller to sign off on. On the low down low, what the city of Cleveland said to us verbally on the telephone, because they couldn't put it in writing. Gotta love it. Is if the house is in good shape, if it looks good on the outside, just say it's occupied.
So they're telling you to tell people to lie about whether it's leaking or not.
Or if you have a pending tenant coming with a future start date.
And it looks good. She looks good on the outside. Yeah, more or less they told us like. But the other thing to remember, I know this is terrible. They're like, we're so happy you called, and we're like, why? Well, we can't put this in writing. We have templates. Okay. But another case is, let's say your buyer, Brian, your seller moved out and they've relocated to their new home. And it's vacant now because you're listing it and you're selling it. And it's only going to be vacant for the 4 weeks in which it's listed to occupancy. Just say it's occupied. Again, this is assuming it's not like, oh, there's a hole in the roof and a hole in the floor and all paint's peeling and, you know, those things.
Okay.
Yeah, they're looking for more like, it's been not occupied 3 months, 6 months, years.
Really,
It doesn't
really went about that the right way.
Well, and what's more frustrating is when you call, they say, this has been around for years. It's been around, you weren't enforcing it, so.
Registration, but not inspection.
Yes. And if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to talk it through with you if you're like, all right, here's my scenario. So.
So I bring that up just so you're at least aware of this. This is like only being enforced very recently. You know,
Yes.
I just came across it
In the last.
like 3 times in the last month and a half.
And here's the other thing, if on the city of Cleveland disclosure, your seller accidentally checks vacant because they don't understand the question. And let's say they're living there, and they call the city and say, oh, I checked the wrong box, my bad. No, you have to register it now.
Well,
So.
Craziness. It's a crazy world out there.
Did you have a question?
No, I haven't heard of this and I'm like so
This is
shocked
all
by
like
it. I'm
residents
like,
first stuff from last February.
yeah,
But the vacant property and point of sale part was like the last thing they were gonna start enforcing, so. I had thought originally that was not till like end of summer, but they're clearly already doing it.
This has all been in the kitchen being cooked since 2020. And that's why they're now being like, it's been around for years, get the program. The program you just started enforcing and didn't tell anyone about, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So,
Being Cleveland proper.
Yeah.
yes. In a fun way to tell a property is in the city of Cleveland, the permanent parcel number starts with a 1 or a 0.
You know.
Yeah, fun fact, right? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, skip a few. Don, come on up, brother. All right, since everybody always likes to know about interest rates, I have a little tidbit here for you that I picked up yesterday. I have to read this one, so I don't get it wrong. So for 14 years between 2008 and 2022, for the first time ever, the government kept mortgage rates artificially low to help stimulate the economy during the Great Depression, Great Recession, and then the pandemic. So where I'm going with this is, if you ignore that artificial stimulus of 14 years, for the last 50 years, interest rates have averaged 7.73%. So rates are historically normal right now. So if we're all looking for rates to get into the low 6s or upper 5s without a cost, we need the left, the middle, the right, and most of all, the media to recognize that we've been in a recession and are in recession. But we're not going to be in a recession until you start seeing unemployment numbers get close to 300,000 on average every month. So you keep seeing unemployment numbers between 175 and 225. Nobody's going to say we're in a recession. Unemployment is what triggers a recession. So we need to see those numbers. I don't say we need to, but if you're all hoping for those lower rates, you got to see unemployment numbers start to really move up. Or better yet, tell people that those really low rates are not real. Or that too, yeah. Yeah, the other thing is too, you know, they keep wanting to go back to this, getting the inflation number down to 2%. Well, that's a number that was created by Volcker back in the 80s. Inflation's at 2.4 right now. I mean, trying to get to 2 in this time is just gonna be tough, so I don't see that happening anytime soon. So keep an eye on unemployment numbers. You see those start to rise continually. I think that's when you're start your recession starts to raise.
Are they artificially keeping those down?
They have been.
I would use the term
Participation
manipulating the
numbers.
I've used for the last year and a half, manipulating numbers. That's what I believe.
Usually when the stock market drops, the flight to safety bonds go the other way, interest rates come down. That is not happening at this time. As the market goes down, bonds are going up, which is really weird. Any insight on that?
I have no rhyme or reason for that, because that one is strange to me, but you're right. When the stock market starts tanking, everybody flies to the bond market. That's just not happening. I guess my answer to that would be just the tariff talk is just keeping everything. It's some crazy numbers now. So there's 2 people who normally buy most of the bonds, and neither of them are interested in buying the bonds because of the tariff talk.
So happy about that.
So what you need to wish for also is you need the next 30 to 40 days, you need to see Xi and Trump come together and work out some tariff number between those 2 countries. That's what we need to see.
Then market rates come down.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Don. All right, Leverage Center. Liz.
I don't really have much to say today, just as the market picks up, just know I'm here to help, and yeah, call me if you need me.
Yeah, if you guys feel like you're running like crazy and don't know what you could take off of your plate, like that would be a conversation to have with Liz to say like, I'm running like crazy and here's all the things I'm doing, like what things could you do about those things? Because there are more than you think. It's not just transaction work.
And you
Tori
have,
does a
you have
great
capacity right now.
What?
You have extra capacity.
I
right
do,
now.
yes.
She always does. Wouldn't matter how many deals there were in the pipeline.
Find a way. Well, no, at some point I could, capacity, but yeah, like if I can't do it, Tori probably can, so. Yeah. Anything.
She's great. Marketing.
Yeah,
She's amazing.
I wish she was here. The top for herself about that. All right, I think. You know what's funny? I saw a while ago Wesley down in the hallway, but he's not in here, so we're gonna miss out on him for now. All right, let's get into it. Let's get our stars up here to the front of the room. Yeah.
All right.
You guys excited?
Yes.
Wondering. Good.
Yeah, you're the prettiest,
Or-
obviously.
How do you think?
So I wrote down a number of the questions you guys have already been able to. So we'll go through those and we'll see where some of them take us. They may take us to some other questions. But let's start with we all know like expectation setting is the most important part of our job, right? So talk to all of us about kind of what expectation setting looks like when whether you're doing it at like a buyer consultation or if it's like the first time you're writing an offer that is going to be a competitive situation, like what kind of expectations are you setting? What are you saying? What do you feel like works really well to get people's heads wrapped around it and not just get upset and frustrated in the process? I don't care who's
You wanna
first.
go first?
Oh, no.
Definitely buyer consults. I like to use Area Pro, which is basically like trend graphics, but just showing them the statistics. I mean, numbers don't lie. So when you can say, point to houses or even show them comps and say, this is literally what happened. We went over asking, there's no closing costs paid for. That kind of triggers in their mind, like, okay, this is competition I could be looking at for certain houses. So it paints a picture.
I like to over communicate at the beginning too, like, I think when you're going into markets where you know it's going to be competitive, it's like we're gonna have levers we can pull, so like, we can control the offer price, we can control the terms. These are areas where you're gonna have a lot of say, and then the other thing we can control is like my communication. And so I'm going to be overly communicating to ensure that side goes seamlessly as possible. Whereas, the other two factors are more like, let's understand what's possible there so that when we get into a stressful, emotional moment, we've already had some of these conversations at least to start, so that when they're saying what they're comfortable doing, to your point about, are they gonna overpromise or whatever at the moment, that they feel a little bit more comfortable about.
When you say terms, what things are you talking about?
Are they comfortable with things like, limited inspections or going over asking or, rent backs or, things along those lines.
Yeah, I set expectations even with clients who you would think that maybe they're gonna have the type of offer that's gonna win. Like I recently had a guy who was gonna do an all cash offer. So that's great, but we still have to have competitive terms. Cash is great, but we still have to match our terms with the other offers that might be coming in. So even setting expectations with the people who think that they're having the winning offer is really important, because they sometimes are even harder to gauge.
Yeah, good point.
It's funny, everybody with cash thinks they're the only person paying cash.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
always find that fun. I'm always like, that's not that special. There's 15 offers, 5 of them are gonna be cash. It's not that high.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like are the most valuable strategies to win that you've employed, whether that's just, market around price or inspections or letters that you're providing with, to the listing agent about like, hey, this is who I am, this is what we're gonna do, this is how I operate? Like, what do you feel like is working at a better rate than normal? Based on what you see around you?
No, the better rate than normal part. Interesting, to your question. I mean, I think going back to the communication, that is on me as far as like, I think that agents who I'm more likely to work with when I'm on the listing side are the ones that are calling me after the showing to say it went really well. Are calling me again, hey, I'm writing an offer, what's important to your seller? Hey, I just submitted, did you receive it? Those types of things, I feel like I try to do on the buyer side and appreciate that on the sell side. That's more like general operations, but then I suppose too, I have had a win recently, not, I guess, last year, but, there was a call from the lender to also endorse the financial situation. So, anything you can do to add confidence there, I feel like it's helpful.
Yeah, I double that. That's so important to talk to the listing agent, and to be prepared for the showing. I know it's so silly. Sometimes you're busy, your client calls you that morning, like, I want to look at this house. Try and pull those disclosures on your phone, because the worst thing is, they mentioned something and you didn't look at it. And now it's like offers are due that evening. So you want to be prepared, know the disclosures. After you leave that showing, if they like it, have that call, figure out where the situation lies, or do they already have offers? Just stay in communications with the listing agent appropriately. Don't annoy them. But at the same time, make sure that they know who you are, and that they have, that they're like, how you get the feeling like
Building
this,
rapport.
yeah,
Right.
like they know that you want this, and you're gonna do what's right for your client and theirs to get the deal done.
Yeah, I mean, communication, obviously, with your clients so that they feel more comfortable with going over asking, with giving that run back to the seller, and then talking to that listing agent, becoming their best friend for the next 30 to 45 days, so that they feel comfortable with you going with your buyer's offer, right? So that they can, have an easy close.
Beyond just like talking with listing agents so that they feel like you're on top of it, like, what are things that you share either about your clients or about yourself that you feel like are, that they gravitate towards?
Yeah, I can say that's part of when I speak to a listing agent, part of what I'm trying to communicate is either how long I've known these buyers, or have we worked together before, or, if it's an investor client, we've never backed out of a deal before, like those types of things to help build confidence. I feel like are the types of notes I get.
And even though, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Even the way you present your offer, so you can have a really great conversation with the listing agent, but if you just send over the offer via dot loop without a letter, I think, you want your offer to be as attractive as the way you had just communicated. And it shows when someone just sends it via dot loop versus in a PDF, easily for you to open, and kind of gives a summary and a little bit of note about themselves and the buyers. I think that those extra, 10 minutes that took you to write it is gonna pay off.
Like a one pager.
Yeah, like a little one pager. And then I'll share that I work with, Liz as my transaction coordinator, and that she's gonna, that it's not just me, that I have backup help.
Yeah, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So like that, writing up the offer, making sure it's clean, filling out the last page with their info too. Summarizing in the email, shooting them a text, just overly communicating. I really think that kind of makes you come off as a professional and gives you a better shot at, getting your offer accepted.
Kind of talked about the tailoring aspect of it. Any really like outside of the box things that you guys have done and done well that worked?
I've had clients, a lot of times they know that their payment's not till the following month, so that lease back, they might give an abnormal amount of days for you rent back. So they feel more comfortable with that because they haven't put any more money into it besides just closing on it.
So that's just like making sure they understand that, but yeah, when you close in
100%.
April,
Right.
the payment till June.
Right, and making sure they understand they're essentially a landlord at that point, but that there's ways to protect them with that too.
When you work with the Golden Group on the listing side, everyone gets a free house clean before we do the photography, so I don't know that it's helped me necessarily one-to-one, like win, but it's certainly like a surprise if I submit an offer on the buy side and say like, hey, when the seller moves out, don't worry about cleaning, like, we'll do the final clean, we'll include a house cleaning kind of like as part of our offer. Because, you know, people are trying to move out and then they think like, what is broom clean? I don't know, I just want to be in my new place, and so it's been a bit of a surprise and delight moment.
I think I stuck to the usual that you probably heard of, you know, being flexible with lease backs, being flexible with timing of day, you know, the seller says, you know, I like to close, but, you know, instead of 5, you know, just being extra flexible for what the seller wants and just really listening to the listing agent to figure out what that is. Cause sometimes you'll hear something and be like, oh, that's it. I need to focus on this is what they need. So just really listen to what they tell you.
I don't know if everyone else deals with this, but it seems like a lot of sellers need to cap the proceeds to buy something else, so the flexibility is huge. But I've also done non-refundable earnest money, which for some reason to the seller, that's like gold to them. Quicker inspection times, sometimes like the next day after getting their offer accepted, a seller likes to know that, because then they don't have to wonder or wait a week if their house is going back to market, they can know almost the next day.
Yeah, and I'm saying non-refundable earnest money is an interesting idea that is like, earnest money is more flexible than I think we all realize, in the sense that like, earnest money doesn't even have to be deposited with the title company or a brokerage. Like, it could, I mean, Don, you correct me if I'm wrong, but earnest money could just be handed over to the seller immediately, and as long as you've got proof of that having been done, yeah, then it's counted as dollars into the deal, right? So like, I think we create a lot of weird trip hazards for ourselves with earnest money by doing difficult things around, like, and maybe I just unlocked something for you and you can make it even easier, right? Is like the idea that like, we don't have to screw around with it nearly as much as we do. And I think having a buyer write it to a seller, it ensures that they understand that it's gone. Right? Because even though they say like, oh yeah, we'll make it non-refundable, and then they know they're depositing with the title company and everybody has to sign a mutual release because you didn't change the language enough to make it so it's actually non-refundable most likely, then the whole thing gets botched, right? Versus like, just make it easy. And I'll tell you, like, as a listing agent, which you guys have all received multiple offers on a listing, we're gonna talk about that in a second a little bit too, but like, when it comes right down to it, if you've got 5 offers, it's not like one of them's a no-brainer usually. Usually there's like 3 of them that it's kind of like, I don't know, we could take any one of these 3. And then it's a matter of figuring out now, like, who's the better agent? Who's the better lender? Who's putting 25% down instead of 20% down? Whatever little hairs you're gonna split. But the thing that you're most concerned about is, which one of these 3 is most likely to close? And the buyer that's most likely to close is the one that's willing to give up money today. Even if it's only $1,000, like, that says something different, right?
Does the amount of the earnest money sway an offer one way or the other? In other words, $5 grand versus $1 grand.
Definitely, yeah, it just had to happen yesterday, where they said if we did 3% earnest money, and that was like the difference maker, so.
It's still refundable.
Yeah,
Like, still, if there's an inspection contingency and stuff, yeah. And that's where, like, it's, you wonder about how much that matters, but some of this is, like I said, you're splitting pretty fine hairs a lot of times.
Yeah, 30% just seems like.
I think you said 3%.
3%.
Oh, I'm. Oh, sorry, there's a hero in there. Hard to question.
But at that point, like,
For one of the you got the down payment,
Right.
30% down, that's one way to do it.
I think at that point though, like Andrew was saying, most offers are looking the same to a listing agent, so it's like, what else can we do to look
Yeah.
different here?
I guess the other thing too that I've said to listing agents as I've submitted would be, if we're not the best, please come back to me and give me another shot. Give me another chance to go back to my client, and it perhaps puts a little bit of guilt or something on the other agent to say.
Does that happen to you frequently?
I've had people come back to me and say, you're right, you're not quite the highest. If you can come up a little more though, in this area, you've got it. Okay, well, let me go back to them and give them this very specific action, and they were willing, and so we were.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think any buyer's highest and best offer is their highest and best offer, but it's at some point, you're just like, well, I don't know what else to do. I don't know,
Right.
like, does 392 versus 390?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. So at some point, you just pick a number and go.
Yeah.
And if you were then told, well, for $1,500 more, it's yours, almost anybody would say, okay. Right?
So I like your, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no.
I like your idea about needing the money for the next one. So the deal we're in right now, I think we got it for 10 grand below other competitive offers because this is where someone's going from a smaller house to a bigger house. They didn't want to make the offer contingent on the bigger house. So we agreed to close. He's got like 3 more weeks that he can rent back on us here, right? But the day he said yes to us at a lower price, and I think he went and offered 30 grand over for a house in Avon Lake with the confidence that he could write in that he's under contract to close on this date, which is prior to the date of the new house. So because people get their egos and when they want to get that bigger house, sometimes I'm with you on that. I think there's something real to this rent back. I think it's going to continue to happen to us.
Oh, I was gonna say, what are your thoughts on like escalation clauses and appraisal?
Internet.
Yes or yes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in regards to appraisal gap, it's like, yeah, if you're going over asking and you're not providing some type of peace of mind
Yeah.
for the appraisal gap, I feel like it's not as a legitimate offer on the listing side when I'm evaluating. And then I've also had lenders, and I don't know if it's just for certain buyers, Don, maybe you could share, like, I've had a lender, we've gone 40 grand over asking, and then a lender was able to tell me, the appraisal is waived anyways.
Yeah, the only way we can do that is we have to put a property address into the system.
Okay.
So don't let
Yeah.
any lender tell you they can get an appraisal waiver without having the address, running it through DU or LP.
But you could run it without a contract, right?
You can run without a contract, but what that does for us, it triggers an actual loan application. So we have to disclose that within 3 days or cancel it, start over.
Really? Wow. I was a mortgage broker a long time ago, and I feel like I used to run stuff through DU like it was nobody's business, just to try and manipulate things, but that was probably long before you had to disclose the loan application. And that was like 2005 and 6 and 7, long time ago. Yeah. This is like the thing that I struggle with the most, and the reason I always lose is because I err on the losing side of this question. Is how do you deal with like dealing with this with your client, but also with yourself? I think is a reasonable question. Like balancing people winning and not doing a terrible deal for themselves. Like how do you handle that? Is it just conversation? Is it like as long as they feel like they won, then you're okay with it, or how do you handle that?
A lot of conversations, but like, even with that non-refundable earnest money, typically won't do that unless they're fully underwritten, make them feel better about, hey, something was to happen, like, we did as much as we could up front. But yeah, kind of, you have those conversations.
You're making sure
upfront.
they understand the risk, like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna go, it's gone,
Right, 100%.
and you're okay with that, right?
Yeah, like you show, even waiving inspections, right, like,
Yeah.
you understand you're taking this property as is. Or talking about commission, same thing, just having those conversations up front. Try to do it in the very first conversation with the buyer council before checking out houses, because then their expectations or the way they take anything else after that seems easier to talk about.
I also try to get people not to search at the very top of their price range.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, because it just like leads to tons of disappointment when we can't.
Yeah, we start
Straighten our
scrolling
offer,
over and it's 800 and
Yeah.
they can only afford 775, like they've already lost.
Yeah, it's like not worth, yeah. Also just trying to think about like, I guess when I make calls to listing agents too, I try to just be really realistic with buyers to help them understand how many offers are already on the table for like either we're leaning in and we're competing or let's go ahead and pass it, because there's also like the offer fatigue that kind of comes into play, like if you lose and lose and lose, like that's no good for anybody too. So just being really realistic about that, like win the race you can win, let's go a little bit lower, let's make sure that when we really wanna lean into something aggressive, that we know like that's the right property to do it for.
And sometimes the hardest thing is maybe not writing, but it's just gonna lead
Yeah.
to that fatigue, and sometimes it's just apparent that our offer is just not gonna compete. After what we've learned from the listing agent, we're just not in a position to write that offer, which is hard, and we'll still write it, but sometimes they're like, you're right. Now that I've learned this piece of information, I'm gonna hold off. It sounds like this isn't the right fit for me. Cause even if they know that they're not gonna win, even when you still write it, you still have this like little bit of hope. And every time you're just losing a little bit more hope.
Yeah, the buyer's definitely never thinking of themselves as having a 1 in 20 chance, right? They're like, oh, it's like 50-50. It's like, well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's funny you say that, cause like sometimes you could get all the information in the world from a listing agent, what's gonna win the deal, but the buyer still won't do that. And so sometimes submitting that offer just is validating.
Yeah,
Like,
true.
hey, you were,
Help
You
them
know,
learn
they
the hard lesson.
right, they don't believe us
Yeah.
until that happens.
No, I think there's a process that buyers go through where like they don't agree with what's happening in the marketplace, and like they need to lose once or twice.
Yeah.
Before they realize like, okay, I get it now that like it's not weird for houses to sell for 10% more than they're listed or whatever's happening. It's also like this is. And it happens naturally. I have no idea how to change it. I've tried and it doesn't ever work. But that, like getting buyers to stop looking at the houses that came on the market on Thursday. Like,
Yeah.
hey, like if it's listed for $299 and you don't think you'd be willing to pay $330 for it, I'm like, let's just go look at it next week.
Mhm.
And if it's still for sale, then great.
Yeah,
We can buy it for $300.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then don't be upset about it.
That's a good point.
It doesn't matter.
Also explaining like back on market, like let's look at the broker notes to see what exactly happened, because there's a million reasons why it's not a scarlet letter necessarily. But
It's
it may-
never a scarlet
It
letter.
may look like it going back on the market, like it's broken in some way, but like something could have happened that not even house related.
What do you guys say to your clients when the other agent's just like, oh, the buyer just walked away after the inspection? Like, how do you help your clients internalize that? Because you know what they think. But, and it's not real. Like, the reason the buyer walked away is because they got cold feet.
yeah.
Like, how do you deal with that with your clients so that they don't think like, oh, there's this penalty that needs to be applied?
Specifically for when it's an inspection brief, like.
When a deal comes back on the market,
Yeah,
And they blame it on the inspection is what you're saying.
yeah, like it's been off the market for 6 days, now it's back on.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. But I mean, whether you get information from a listing agent or not, probably doesn't matter.
yeah.
Like, how do you get your client to have the right frame of mind around what that means or doesn't?
I tell them like, hey, we can always get another inspection, so it's very opinionated, and how a buyer interprets it can be super well, they take it in stride, or they can think everything on the list is gonna kill the house, so.
Right.
Getting your own inspection, do your own due diligence, and make your own judgment for yourself.
Yeah, and everyone's risk tolerance is different,
Yeah.
and so let's go in there and take a peek at it, and we'll see if if it's actually something where it's insurmountable as far as inspection issues.
If they're willing to share that previous inspection, if that first buyer was just walking away from cold feet, sometimes that helps. But then you review it and you're like, well,
There's nothing on it.
there's nothing on it. It's pretty apparent.
Yeah, like I had a listing a while ago that they backed out over what amounted to about $4,500 worth of work. It was a $350,000 house. We're talking about 1%, a little more than 1%. But yeah, they just got freaked out.
Yeah.
And then the next person saw that inspection and did that deal.
Yeah, and you can, exactly, you can spin that and like, okay, well, that's really a non-issue, but what it does is like lower the number of people that we're competing with, so let's specifically take a look at those things that are back on market.
What bias do you guys see if you're working, if the buying and listing agents, both KW or both Hannah versus KW or records, do you see any trend there where it's easier to work with another KW person versus a Hannah person, or is that just all neutrality?
I mean, I can tell you from my experience, it's just an agent is an agent.
Yeah.
As they should be, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you can, you could run into a bad Keller Williams agent or a good one, or a bad Remax agent or a good one, or a bad Howard Hanna agent or a good one, like I don't. We strive to have as many good agents as possible, but I think every brokerage probably does.
Since you're on the topic of home inspections, as a lender, a suggestion, if you were on remove the contingency when you read out the addendum, if you're making, just say getting a $2,000 credit because some items on a home inspection, do not cite items 1, 2, 7, 5 of the home inspection on an addendum as the reason for the reduction or credit. Once you start citing stuff like that, the lender has the right to ask for those pages of that home inspection, which opens up a big can of worms. So $2,000 for explosive cross points to repay. That's all I gotta say.
Let's talk about on the listing side. Give me your biggest green flags and red flags around like offers received, like reasons why this would be a fantastic opportunity and reasons this one here would not.
Red flag, it's just an offer that shows up in my email.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Some
It happened
communication
twice
out there
this
for
week.
it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and then they had the audacity to say 2 days later, like, I submitted an offer and I've not received any communication back. I'm like, I barely saw that it was there. You didn't even tell me what's coming. You didn't show the house. You submitted a blind offer and now you're urgently wanting to know if you got it accepted. Okay. That's the biggest red flag,
Yeah.
for sure.
Do you guys all agree with that?
Yeah,
Like communication is it. That's it.
So important.
Okay. So how about
It
biggest,
just shows that we're like, we're both, we're both commission based, we're both trying to create a win-win. So the communication part, yeah, is certainly key.
how about biggest green flags where it's like, yeah, this looks like the right one because of this.
One, it's, checking all the check marks, they wrote a solid offer, they have the lease back, they have an appraisal gap. They offer us, they're just checking every box, they have a letter, just those types of offers are just so smooth that it's like, how could you not?
So I gotta say something about that. 'Cause
Okay.
what I hear you say is the only way for the green flag is like, the buyer who's willing to give up everything.
Not everything, I do respect, not everything, I do respect when, I always tell my sellers, we want them to get an inspection. We're not scared of that, but we prefer if they say, this is just for informational purposes. We like to see that maybe, or, we're not gonna ask for anything unless it's a big ticket item. Like, communicate with the seller, I'm writing this type of offer, but, we're not gonna ask you
So
to
like
check the door.
expectations around
Yes,
inspection.
expectations around inspection. Yeah, but a nice solid offer where you're explaining what you expect in each item and how much you're gonna give in that.
Yeah, green flags, I mean, if not seeing a dollar bank pre-approval, or, I don't like to judge on that, but if they have that lender pro dollar bank call me, that makes me feel better. Or if I can get in touch with them on a Wednesday at lunchtime, that's nice too. But yeah, not having that communication up front from that standpoint kind of makes me worried, like, okay, where are we gonna be heading with this? Even though they might have some finances, it's just when you compare it to 3 other offers, like, kind of, it's hard to think, not like that.
And beyond just like the details of the offer, I think the agent reputation matters too. Like I was a listing agent for a home that was in an estate, and Christina Paramore from our office like brought a cash buyer, and it was lower than, another offer that came in, but it was partially the fact that it was cash and it would go cleanly, but partially I'm like, my office is 3 doors down from hers, and I know that I can walk down there and she's a good solid human and will work through things too. So I think that had a little bit of confidence boost for my clients.
That was one of my other questions. We'll jump to it so that you two can speak on this as well. How do you talk about agent reputation or like that piece of it? If that's the final hair that's gonna get split to decide we're gonna work with this offer instead of this offer, and it's because of who the other agent is. Like, how do you talk about that with the seller in a way that they understand? Because they don't know anything about like anybody's reputation or who we know and don't know, and whether that's helpful or not helpful. Like, that's never crossed their mind that that's a thing we would accept an offer over, right? So how do you talk about that?
Related to the experience or any experiences or deals I've had with that person. And usually they can resonate the most with those.
And just when we're doing showings, if, we look at 5 houses and, I've worked with 3 of those listing agents, I'll keep voicing that. Well, I've done a deal with, John Smith, and I've done a deal with this gal. So then they start to realize that I have worked with these other agents and they are in good hands. Ask, send them your reviews, get referrals from past clients. If it's just a new relationship and there's no past history. I think.
I mean, when you're dealing with a seller,
You're
you're talking about like this buyer's agent and this buyer's, like deciding based on that.
Oh.
How do you have that conversation with the sellers?
Well, that's a little bit even more unique, because you just say, I've worked with this buyer's agent before, and I haven't worked with this one, and you just have to be honest and leave it in your seller's hands, but it can make a difference.
I think too, like whether it's experience of the buyer agent and number of years, or just full-time versus part-time even. I mean, I don't necessarily go down those roads, but those directionally nod to like how many reps this person has had at getting a deal to the finish line, and if they're full-time and, this is their livelihood versus 70% of agents not selling a home last year. Like I want to lean toward the person who I know is doing this as a career.
Like, sometimes it might not even be 2 people and I know one, I don't know the other. You might not know either of them,
Yeah.
but like one has like still a reputation that's more apparent than the other.
Mhm.
So, Cindy,
I guess to like,
I was just gonna ask if anybody had any questions. So.
oh, yeah, I mean, what if you had like a really good offer, but you worked with them before and it didn't go well?
That does happen. It
Yeah.
does happen, unfortunately. That's
Yeah.
why you should always carry yourself in an honest, integrity way, even if it didn't work out, that they can say, you know what, even though that deal didn't work out, she was honest. They'll know, at the end of the day, they'll know who you were and how you acted. So just be honest, and it should work out.
I mean, same, yeah.
Have any of you guys ever had to fire a buyer before?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it.
Sounds like you're better at it.
Yeah,
I
battle
wanna
wounds,
listen.
battle wounds. No, I mean, when you meet with them at the buyer council, you talk about their expectations, what they want out of you. And what they, you expect out of them too, right? And you sign an agreement based on that. And when you're owning up to your side, but they're not on their end, you have the conversation about that. I call it a come to Jesus moment. And if they're still not gonna adhere to that advice afterwards, or they're, whether it's price point and they don't wanna look at prices less for, or houses priced at less. Sometimes it's the conversation like, hey, maybe this market is not the market for you to buy in at this point. I'd love to help you out at some point, but it might not be right now. I've advised you to offer certain ways to use these terms in your offer, and you still do not want to do that. I think maybe for now, we take a break and revisit this in a month or so.
Sorry, is there a document for your buyer's agreement that you have them sign to dismiss each other from working together? Is there something?
There's a release.
There is there's an official.
There's a release of the buyer agreement. Rocky uses it a lot.
If you want to do that, right, you want to legally sever, you can do what you
Yeah.
want. Please call my competitor, drag them to the mud, please, yes.
Maybe, yeah.
Sometimes when I'm not working, it just seems like it's not working between myself and the buyer, I just refer them out. I say, at this time, things have been busy for me, and, I would like to introduce you to this realtor. And sometimes it's just maybe it wasn't working with my personality. It's not always just,
Right.
come to Jesus moment. Maybe it just wasn't a good, and, there's a referral out of it,
For sure.
at least get that.
Or sometimes they might be looking just way too far from me. I mean, I've gotten referrals from past clients or my sphere that are just half an hour away. And at first I like the price point. I want to make as much as I can off the deal. But sometimes I realize quickly that they're going to need to see a lot more houses, which is okay. But I just might not have the time to give them, the proper amount of time to give them best service.
So there are perfectly legitimate reasons to dismiss a buyer and refer them to somewhere else.
Yeah,
And there's a Keller Williams agent everywhere, Ohio, right? And you anywhere in the country pretty much.
Yeah,
You
there are parts of Ohio where there aren't, but they're not places where most people.
But
live,
you could
that's
call,
why.
you could call, even if you didn't know someone in, let's say, Paynesville or somewhere, you could find someone there and at least get you on record as a referral versus.
I mean, I think there's two different people you're firing. The person you're firing that like, it's just not going well, like, you can certainly try to refer that person, but at the end of the day, the goal is to get yourself away from it.
Yeah.
Versus the like, hey, you know, like, this is great, but like, I can't commit to what we originally talked about because now it's been, 5 weeks and I've been out here 5 times and we're not any closer to finding things. In fact, we're expanding our search and I'm just not gonna be able to be helpful enough to you. So let's get you in touch with so-and-so. I mean, there's two different versions of that. There's the like, I gotta get away from you, and I think you could do better with
If I'm
something
getting
else.
away because you're geographically undesirable, that's a good referral. If I'm getting away from you because you're just too difficult and you're not aware of what the market bears, then that's.
Yeah, because if you're gonna refer that person, you probably need to have a conversation with the person you're gonna refer them to
100%.
first and make sure that they're
Yeah.
interested. Otherwise, you're just basically, passing the hot potato to
Yeah,
somebody else where there's no point in doing that.
check.
All right. I think we've done it for today. Thank you guys for coming, the people that are here. This is a later meeting than normal. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, a lot of people are like, it's gonna be recorded, and we don't like saying it because then they won't show up, but I was like, yeah, it is gonna be recorded, so.
So,
There's not a
if
recording.
this was interesting to you, come on Friday. At what time is that? 10:30? Friday at 10:30, you'll get a chance to actually be the agent writing the offer and then have your offer actually kind of, looked at and talked about to discover your shortcomings and your successes. So, thank you. We're all done. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you, guys.